Welcome to NQual's Hot Seat, where we ask the real questions and you get the real answers. Today I'm here with Leonie, who is the Qualifications Director at NQual. So tell me a bit about yourself then.
Hi, Maya. So my name's Leonie, and I am Qualifications Director at NQual. I have worked for NQual now for roughly 4.5, 5 years. Initially started off in the endpoint assessment side, so what we do, and now I have come over to the qualification side. And currently at the moment, I head up the decisions around qualifications and endorsed programs, which I'm sure we'll delve into a little bit more detail later on in the episode.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start from the beginning then. So tell me about endpoint assessment and qualifications. Talk to me like I don't know a thing.
Yeah, so NQual is a UK-based awarding organisation. We offer endpoint assessments for apprenticeships, and we also offer Ofqual regulated qualifications and endorsed programmes. We endorse programmes in the UK and also internationally, and we have a real mixed bag of sectors that we are delivering assessments and awarding qualifications in.
So what is NQual's approach then to assessments and qualifications?
Yeah, so NQual's approach has always been and will always be, honesty, openness, but also collaboration. So we really pride ourselves on giving advice and being really supportive with our training providers, learners, and employers, offering sort of additional information where needed, and really just being that supportive sort of organisation that training providers can rely on, but also ensuring that our providers are able to withhold the quality that they need to deliver effective training within the sort of different industries. A lot of the people within NQual come from various backgrounds and have different expertise in different sectors and industries. And when we're all together and bring that together, we're a really good team to be able to support external organisations, training providers, learners, and employers.
You mentioned external training providers and team members. Are we just talking within the UK or are NQual international?
So NQual are within the UK, but they are also international as well. And we do have approved international centres in various countries across different continents. And we have KHDA approval as well. So we are approved to deliver in Dubai, and we also have centres within the Middle East, additionally to Dubai, but also in Asia, Europe, and places like that.
So you just mentioned about the international centres. So what do you offer them? Is it the same for what you offer UK training providers, or is there any slight differences?
Yeah, so it slightly differs depending on the country, only because of that country's own regulations and educational sort of regulations out there. However, we do offer Ofqual regulated qualifications and endorse programs to our international approved centres.
Okay then. So what is the difference between Ofqual regulated qualifications and the endorsed programs?
So, an Ofqual regulated qualification is developed based on our national occupational standards. They follow strict guidelines from Ofqual and from other sort of skills based organisations who oversee them certain sectors. Sometimes we have to develop our qualifications based on um, organisations such as the Department for Education and also Skills for Care. The endorsed programmes are training programmes designed and developed by the individual training institutes and endorsed and quality assured by NQual. So the main difference being the Ofqual regulated qualifications are bench lined within the UK, and they are within our educational sort of stream of qualifications. You can use them qualifications to go to university, go to further different education institutes like colleges and things like that, but you can also use them to gain employment. The Ofqual regulated qualifications, we have to follow really strict guidelines on them, regulations of total qualification times and guided learning hours. However, on the other side of that, we do have endorsed programs. Endorsed programs are programs in which training institutes have designed and developed to meet the needs of industry requirements and expectations. For example, we do have a provider who has developed a induction into the organisation. It's a 12-week induction, and it's a really niche organisation. So for somebody to come in and complete that induction and then become employed by them, they wanted to offer them learners something that meant something that could be put on their CPD log, that could be moved forward into other employers or other sort of education streams. And then again, on the flip side of it, we endorse programs that are 1 day training programs, 2 day training programs, and then again we can endorse programs that are a year long or 2 years long, depending on what the provider wants. Really, they are very flexible, they are credible, they are quality assured, and we benchmark them in a real similar light to what we do with the Ofqual regulated qualifications. The centres that have endorsed programme approval get treated in a very similar light to what the Ofqual regulated centres do. We ensure to uphold that quality through our external quality assurance activities and sampling and things like that. So in terms of the difference between, they are different depending on who's designing and developing them. However, they are both very credible options for a learner to take.
So you mentioned external quality assurance. So what does that provide for either UK or international centres then?
Yeah, so regardless of whether you are a UK based centre or an international based centre, the external quality assurance starts from day one. So when you are submitting your centre application, they will go through a quality assurance process, and we will be looking at, your policies, procedures, and things like that. Throughout your time and journey with us, you will continuously have external quality assurance visits, sampling, activities. That can include things like we might want to come out and observe some teaching and learning. We might want to join some teaching and learning online. If you partake in remote delivery, we might want to sample learners' work. So we will get access to learner portfolios, whether that be online or through sending documents, and we will sample the quality of your practice, and we will ensure that your practice is current, relevant, and also of the highest standard and following NQual's criteria within qualifications and endorsed programs.
So in your previous answer, you mentioned about Ofqual regulated qualifications and endorsed programs. So do they all fall under, say, the same sector of education, or do they have different ones individually?
Yeah, so we do have a lot of different sectors that we award qualifications for. I'll speak about them first. So we have health and social care, early years and education, and business management. We have safeguarding, first aid, things like that. But we also have hair and beauty, which we launched most recently. In terms of the different sort of sectors, we have to follow and abide by certain skills bodies that sit on top of these different sectors. So, as an example of that, we have all of our health and social care diplomas are approved by Skills for Care. Similarly, for our education and early years, especially the early years diplomas, they are approved by the DFE, the Department for Education, and they will be classed as full and relevant, which is what the sector needs. In terms of our hair and beauty, although there's not a skills body that sits on top of that sector, we had found when we wanted to branch out into that sector, we had our skills experts and subject knowledge experts and qualification developers come to the round table, and we found that some of the qualifications that we were seeing were designed and developed 10 years ago. And as you might be aware, or you might not be aware, but that sector in particular has changed so much in the last 10 years. So it was really important for us to ensure that our qualifications were current, relevant, and fresh, especially within that industry. There's been a lot of regulation changes as well within that industry, so we had to ensure that our qualifications were really meaningful. And as an example of that, some of our bigger hair and beauty diplomas have things like units specifically for self-employment, working for yourself, not necessarily being in the salons and beauty salons, and because a lot of people do want to do it on their own now. And we've got some employability units in there, and also some mental health and well-being units in there as well, which ensure that our qualifications remain in current and are actually up there with being relevant to them industries. For endorsed programs, we have a variety of centres endorsing their programs, both in the UK and internationally. It is something that has been quite popular, would you say? In internationally for quite a while. However, the UK are now picking up more on their own training and delivery and their own endorsement of programs. And I think that's because in the UK, especially, there's organisations that necessarily want to have really niche and specific training. So, as an example, we have one of our largest centres who has a solar panel installation organisation, and their introduction to employment is very specific and very niche. So, to allow people to come in and induct into that employment, they wanted to endorse that program, that 12-week induction, because they wanted then that person to have something that they could go to a similar organization later on if they wanted to and have that and display that. We also have sort of programs around the generic sort of sectors, business management, early years, and things like that. But then we also have a lot of programs, maybe 1 day program in coaching or a 2 year program in I don't know, construction, digital technology, AI, things like that. The the scope of sectors within endorsed is greater than the Ofqual regulated. We have some really good, unique and niche programs for endorsement here that obviously people have come to us and said there's nothing like this in the industry. We've designed it, we've developed it, we want to endorse it. Can you put your quality stamp on it? And obviously, that is what we've done, and that's what we've got involved in.
Wow, so it's evident that you cover a lot of sectors then.
Yeah, so don't get me wrong. We will not be endorsing programs in, becoming a surgeon in 2 hours. We are quite strict on, our programs, the delivery, the length of time. And don't get me wrong, we do get in subject experts when we need to endorse and approve certain programs. If we feel like we need additional expertise, we will seek that out.
So what I've picked up is you have quite a high amount of external stakeholders, so you have quite a collaborative approach. So tell me more about it.
Yes, so we collaborate a lot and we pride ourselves on that collaboration and support. And from day one, when you get in touch with us, we'll always give you the advice and guidance, that we think that you might want or need, or, you can always ask us a question. And I think a lot of our providers out there will tell you that. I have a lot of people asking me questions like, I want to deliver this within a schools boot camp. However, I don't want to do the full qualification. What can I do? Well, you can deliver a unit only. If there's a relevant unit that you want to deliver, then let's still, put that in there. There's a lot of suggestions as well that we take on from our providers around qualifications, because at the end of the day, the providers are in there with the employers and the learners that are in the sectors day in, day out. So they should be involved in the development of qualifications and the development of materials and things like that. So it's really important for us to gauge the opinions and ideas of our training providers and approved centres and get that into our NQual sort of approach, if you will.
So you mentioned skill boot camps. So what does that benefit the learner? Like, do they get an award similar to an Ofqual regulated qualification, or is it a completely different certification they get?
Yeah, so skills boot camps are commissioned by the government, and they sometimes, will say in this area we're struggling for early years practitioners, as an example. So they will commission out to training providers in the area. Does anyone want to deliver a skills boot camp? They're funded. You can deliver X, Y, Z. That's fine. The variety within a skills bootcamp is not always does it have to be a qualification. However, if you put a qualification into a skills bootcamp or a unit into a skills bootcamp, something that's recognised that that learner can take away, you're instantly adding value to that training that you're offering to that learner. So that's why a lot of providers do like to offer an Ofqual regulated qualification into that skills bootcamp training. Skills boot camps can last between a couple of weeks to a couple of months of training and delivery, depending on the qualification or the training that is required. But it's definitely adds value to what that learner's taken out and taken away from that, and where they can use that then moving forward.
Well, thank you very much, Leonie. I think we're going to wrap this up because we have covered a lot today and I've asked you many questions. But I do have one last question for you, which is if anybody wants to collaborate with NQual, whether that's for Ofqual regulated qualifications or endorsed programs, what are the steps? What have they got to do?
So first off, they have to become an NQual approved centre, and that is the same for Ofqual regulated or endorsed programme routes, or both. Some will offer both. And an NQual approved centre essentially is NQual approving you to deliver their qualifications or approving you to deliver the programmes that are endorsed by us. When you are an NQual approved centre, that means that you are upholding the quality standards around education, training, and delivery, and you are within that sort of NQual quality approach.
So then, what are the steps of becoming an approved centre?
So there's 5 simple steps to become an NQual approved centre, and that is the same for UK-based, international, endorsed or Ofqual. The first step is get in touch, give us a call, pop us an email, or fill out the form on the website. I'm sure somewhere there will be a link in a bio somewhere for a call. Once you've had that initial meeting and you've outlined your expectations and your needs and what it is that you're looking for, we will then send you the application document. Fill out the application document and submit that alongside the required evidence that we need. That could include team member CVs, qualifications, CPD logs, organisation policies, and things like that. Once we've received all that, we will have a little look through your application, ensure you've got the relevant policies, they're up to date, you've got the relevant staff members on board to deliver qualifications and programs, and then, yeah, we will confirm your approval. If we need anything else from you during that time, we just ask for it. We don't automatically decline centre applications on that basis. We will simply just ask for additional evidence where needed. And again, we're on that collaborative approach, so we're here if you need us, really. Thank you very much for having me on the hot seat.
Oh, it has been a pleasure, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it too.